October 21st, 2016. Life was pretty good. No global pandemics, no skill-based matchmaking. Heck, EA hadn't even come out and called their player base a bunch of uneducated bigots at this point yet. So, all in all, everything seemed pretty nice. The release of Battlefield 1 was right around the corner in time for Christmas. Bruno Mars was flaunting his 24K magic, and Maroon 5 had just come out with their latest music video, Don't Want to Know, as they were taking advantage of the Pokemon Go craze that probably brought us closer together than anything in recent history. So, yeah, remember those times?
Pepperidge Farm remembers.
Well, the good news is you can still go back to October 21st, 2016 and relive some of those memories because Battlefield 1 is alive and well. Although not to the extent it was 4 years ago, you can still find a server to hop on today and relive some of those memories of mowing down enemies, blasting papier-mâché planes out of the sky, and getting absolutely wrecked by every automatico in the game. In this video, we're going to look at how healthy Battlefield 1 is in 2021, is it worth going back and playing, and if you make it to the end of the video, I'm going to share my own personal life experiences, nostalgia, back when me and my friends were obsessed with the game. So if you want to encourage and support your favorite all-American freedom-loving gamer, don't forget to like and subscribe, and if you do subscribe, leave a comment below letting me know, and I will make it my first priority to respond to you. So, without further ado, let's get down with Battlefield 1. Ever since they released the reveal trailer back in May of that year, DICE Studios had everyone on edge waiting for the next Battlefield to come out, and not to mention, the reveal trailer posted the highest amount of likes for any video game reveal trailer of all time, and it stands to this day at 2.3 million. Ironically, Call of Duty kept pressing on with their futuristic wall-running super soldiers and ended up getting the most hated video game trailer of all time, garnering a whopping 3.9 million dislikes. Now, while other titles were practicing the traditional kind of modern versus World War II aesthetics, DICE went way out on a limb by attempting to bring back an era previously unexplored, a war that happened over 100 years ago. DICE carefully towed a thin line of being authentic and still allowing fun gunplay. The creativity behind this project is really what carried Battlefield 1 to the success it was and still is today. But how much of a success exactly? Now, at the time this video is published, Activision is currently going through a PR crisis, with many players and content creators calling them out for their money-grubbing monstrosity known as skill-based matchmaking. So, if you're tired of skill-based matchmaking, I really suggest you hop into a Battlefield 1 server and play against an actual player base instead of Activision's awful matchmaking system. It is refreshing, to say the least. And now that many people have found that Activision is pretty much screwing its long-term player base, and EA flipped the bird to their customers with Battlefield 5, gamers seem to be rallying back to Battlefield 1 when game developers didn't attack their own community and possibly made profits by enriching the gaming experience, not pushing whatever money-making mechanic they can think of this next year. So, at this moment, it's very hard to assess the health of Battlefield 1's player base, unfortunately, as many of the websites that did keep counts have either gone or simply stopped updating. So, really the only way to tell is just to hop into a server browser and see for yourself. I also want to note that this is on PC, and usually PC player bases can be diminished on older Battlefield games, even though anecdotal evidence among my friends says otherwise. So, you'll just really have to go in and look. As you can see, I'll scroll through a few different server filters here, and while not in its prime, you can still easily find any number of servers to go out on, play and have fun on, especially if you live in Japan or if you live in Europe. If you're an American like me, there's still plenty of options, although slightly restricted compared to the other side of the world. You can pretty much log on almost any time and hop into a game of Conquest or even the fan favorite Operations mode for that real all-out war field that seemingly, I don't know of any AAA titles that are offering that right now. I will say that using the server browser is an absolute necessity. So if you do use a quick search feature, you're probably going to waste a lot of time loading into ghost town servers with few or no players. You always want to use a server browser and choose what and where you want to play. Just remember that. Speaking of the server browser, one fantastic thing that DICE implemented into Battlefield was a mechanism that really helps ensure fewer lower player lobbies. So you don't load into a whole bunch of lobbies that's got like 2 or 3 or 5 or 10 players. So you're almost, although you're almost guaranteed to have to sit a minute or two in a queue to get in some of these games because they're full servers, DICE was really wise in implementing a map voting system. So in games like Battlefield 4 or 5, you had no choice. You were stuck in an endless map rotation that inevitably meant players would be forced to play a map they don't like or to leave the servers, with many opting for the latter. That keeps those servers dealing with a constant flow of in and out traffic, but thanks to Battlefield 1's map voting system, players get to choose which map they play next, leaving them playing longer and ensuring servers stay healthy and full. Now, we got to see how this game actually stands up to today's standards. And on PC, the graphics still stand up amazingly well. And with the proper headset, the sound design still trumps many games today. It is amazing. There was nothing better than seeing your character creak open the doors to a tank. Y'all remember that? We were all freaked out because, oh man, you actually see him hop onto the motorcycle. You actually see him open the door of the tank and climb in. That was so cool back then. But actually being able to hear those doors creep open, hop in, and hear that diesel engine putter to life was amazing. And even traveling on different terrain would elicit different noises from your tank as you were putting it under heavier loads and lighter loads. But this game still looks amazing today, and the sound will still blow you away. It's better than a lot of games that are out there as far as sound goes. So obviously, with a game that came out in 2016, there are going to be some features that have shown some age, and there's no getting away from that. So we're going to go ahead and knock those out. And probably the most noticeable factor that dated this game was the movement. After I hopped in, it was like, wow, it's so slow. Because after playing Call of Duty Modern Warfare and playing Warzone for so long with slide canceling and tactical sprints and that really smooth as glass feel, Battlefield is going to feel pretty clunky for quite some time until you get back used to the older mechanics. I've caught myself randomly crouching, running across open terrain, only realized I was just looking like a dumbass crouch walking across an open battlefield. It takes a little bit of getting used to. So, yeah, I'm amazed at how revolutionary this game felt at the time with such dated movement mechanics. But if it were any other way, it definitely wouldn't feel like Battlefield 1. I do like it. There's no way that Battlefield, that people in 1917 were, sliding around corners and stuff. That wouldn't really feel that authentic anyways. But, so the guns are also dated, but what do you expect? They were dated the day that Battlefield 1 came out. They're literally modeled after a 100-year-old design, but really, props to the developers for having the creativity to research and find certain gadgets and prototype weapons to pull into the game. It's very, very neat what they came up with. They didn't really care that there was only one Hill Regal in history ever made, but they did a fantastic job of balancing fun with authenticity. And to be honest, I learned a ton about World War I from this game. Not so much directly, even though you could go in there and you could get, some of your codex unlocks and learn right then. But the stories, the equipment, and especially the tanks, they piqued my curiosity the greatest. So I learned about the Great War, and that really led to an extensive amount of research that enriched my gaming experience. I was very interested in World War I during this time and learned a lot because it's something that very few of us even knew anything about. And another downfall of Battlefield 1, which was sorely lacking, was the customization and the progression. I can't even say this aspect is dated, really, because there were plenty of other games at the time that fully embraced nearly unlimited variation, unlimited customizations of weapons and skins, and if there was one fault in Battlefield 1, this was it. It's not a huge one, it's still a wonderful game to play, but guns came in different variants instead of being able to customize each piece and attachment, and when you're dealing with those 100-year-old weapons, I can kind of see they weren't that modular. There's not much you could do. And then there was hours of opening loot boxes, which more often than not just gave us a new skin that kind of changed our weapons to a different shade of brown, even though there were some pretty cool ones in there, but they were few and far between. But really, considering the amount of creativity afforded to the other aspects of this game, I can see why making these archaic weapons aesthetically pleasing may have been a challenge for sure. And while many players, including myself, hated the RBD, the random bullet deviation, it is kind of authentic. You're dealing with inaccurate weapons, and it shows. But after going back and playing a few years later, I honestly don't mind it that much. Considering everybody else is running around with crappy weapons too, it doesn't affect me as much. And in most cases, I find myself being killed by a plethora of different weapons. There definitely is a meta, but because there's no skill-based matchmaking, because we're not all sweating our butts off every single lobby, we actually have a decent amount of variety to that kind of rock, paper, scissors style gameplay. So, let's be honest. When the Hill Regal came out, yeah, it was stomping everybody. And if you weren't running as an assault player, you might as well not play assault. And after that came the SMG 08. When it came out, it was burning through players faster than the crack rock at Hunter Biden's Chinese apartment. But after all this time, DICE really did smooth out some of these imbalances. And is the Hill Regal still OP? Hell yeah, it's OP. Is the SMG still a bullet hose? Yeah, it seems to be the case. But either way, I can look past those flaws as I'm still being killed by tons of different weapons, and there's a lot of variety in this game. Plus, each and every kill in this game was pretty satisfying. So, I mean, who can forget that iconic plink of a player's helmet flying off after a perfectly landed headshot? It was so satisfying. And part of that satisfaction came from learning each individual weapon and where its strengths lied, where its weaknesses lied. Some were hip-fire machines, some could melt enemies up close, garbage at range. A lot of them were that way. Some required a bipod to be close to being accurate, and some only became accurate after the first few shots, after you held down for a little bit. Plus, because the guns were, let's be honest, kind of crap, it pressed players to find more creative ways to enjoy the game, using dynamite and limpet charges and even the medical syringe as a weapon. This really did allow Battlefield 1 to trounce its successor, Battlefield 5, with those only in Battlefield moments. So sure, BF5 still has its fair share, but nothing like the nonsense being perpetrated on the Battlefield 1 maps. So, and you know what? There were some controversial additions to the gameplay, which I personally liked. I wasn't so sure about it to begin with, but I really did like the behemoths. They were legitimately powerful, but they weren't too OP. You could have a good run on these, but it changed the entire game whenever one loaded in. If your team was getting railed, but utilized the power of the train, the airship, or properly supported the mammoth super tank like you were supposed to, you could absolutely turn the tide of a battle. But at the same time, a coordinated team could make short work of a behemoth in literally minutes from it spawning in on the map. And no one can forget the awesome spectacle of an airship crashing down on the players, on the cities, and completely changing the gameplay with this just enormous carcass of twisted steel lying in the middle of the map. But if I were to focus on one all-encompassing word to describe Battlefield 1, it would be atmosphere. The game oozes it, from the sounds, the music, the soldiers all speaking their own language, the tanks, the maps, air combat, that noise that your enemy made when you landed a shovel deep into their shoulder and took them to the ground. All of that worked together to make a very immersive experience that was made up of dozens and dozens of just tiny details that were all weaved together and made you feel like you really were on the battlefield 1917s. And the flavor, the essence, and once again, the atmosphere of this game just dominated your senses. It truly didn't take much suspension of disbelief to get immersed into the Great War. Every game has a certain amount of that, and Battlefield 1 was one that you could really get lost in pretty quickly. So, should you get Battlefield 1 in 2021? In my estimation, absolutely yes. EA offers a monthly subscription that allows you to play all the modern Battlefield games for free, and even if you're not into that, there's always some game bundle that will allow you to pick up multiple Battlefield games, including Battlefield 1, for probably around $30 if you're looking around. And I'd say it's well worth it. But we didn't just want to answer that question in this video, Now, I've got a question for you. What were you doing in 2016? What does this game take you back to? When you hear that diesel engine fire up when you hop into a tank, when you hop into a plane and you see that instrument cluster in front of you and the valves ticking on the engine, what does that elicit from you? So now that you made it this far, I guess you deserve a little bit of insight into my personal experience with Battlefield 1 as well. And this really is the best part in my opinion. Have you ever had a game just take you back to a simpler time? Maybe one gaming experience can anchor itself in your mind and remind you of better days. And after you listen to my story, I genuinely want to know yours. I'm truly interested in your memories, and if Battlefield 1 happened during a good time or a bad time. Did it make a good time better, or did it make a crappy time not as bad? So please leave your story in the comments. I want to communicate with you all on this. I want to hear them. And I know that 2016 was probably one of the greatest years of my life when Battlefield 1 came out. Me personally, we were winding down what had been one hell of a campaign season. I'd been eating, sleeping, breathing politics that year, and if you know me or if you watch much of this channel, you'll know that that's something I'm very passionate about. I knocked on like 3,000 doors for Ted Cruz in 6 weeks in the middle of January and February. We went out in the cold, the rain, the sleet, the snow, knocking on doors, and it was just like you just love to suffer through it. We had a Washington Post journalist come down and ride with me and write an article about us, and then I had Glenn Beck come down and knock on doors with me. I was freaking out over this because it was just so awesome to have Glenn Beck go and knock on doors with me. He was like my childhood hero, and I was finally getting to meet him. It was just one of those years that I was so busy in my purpose. And then after the campaign season, went out to Texas. I met some people in the campaign that allowed me to stay out at their house in Texas and save me a bunch of money. It was just by myself, decided I wanted a road trip, and first time I ever did anything like that. And as everything was winding down from all of that, I was kind of bouncing around to different political jobs, and Battlefield 1 came out. And it was something that was really nice to sit and learn about a new chapter of history, because I was a history buff and still am. I like history. It was something that I could unwind from this very busy campaign season, and me and my buddies just come over and we'd swap controllers. I had a good friend of mine named Clay, and he loved using the bayonet. He loved Battlefield 1. We'd come over and play it on PlayStation. He actually brought over some muscadine wine that was a little too sweet, but we drank it anyways. Had a little bit mixed, a little too sweet, but it was fine. And even playing Battlefield 1, I go back to remembering the taste of that wine because we drank it all the time while we were sitting and playing Battlefield. And I'd go to bed, he'd be in my living room, and the subwoofer would be cranked up, and it felt like the house was about to fall down, but I didn't care. And during those times, it really was awesome. And I don't know why. Why don't we ever see life as good as it is in the moment? 2020 has been pretty crap. And we're heading into 2021. What happens when we look back at 2020 and say, yeah, those were the good old days? Because we're looking at 2016 thinking, yeah, this kind of sucks. We're just going through life. But that's going to be my challenge for you. In 2021, I want you to go through it and realizing how good it is during the moment. Anyways, guys, leave your comments below. Don't forget to like and subscribe to this video, to my channel. Share this with your friends. And once again, share your stories of Battlefield 1. And like I said, did it make a good year better? Did it make a crappy time not bad? Leave your comments below. I definitely appreciate you coming and checking out this video. Anyways, God bless you. God bless America. Y'all have a blessed 2021.